Welcome in, Rollin out here, WPGU 107.1 UPTV. Went back to the old intro.
And the old people.
I think I like it.
I like it too.
We've got Will Gerard here. Oh my gosh, Will, where have you been? Briefly, tell us, our audience.
Pyeongchang.
I have been down in Cairo, Illinois, which is 3 hours south of here. It's almost all the way it's pretty much next to the border of Illinois. You can just head straight over to Missouri or Kentucky. But I was down there taking pictures. There's a guy who reached out to me. He wanted me to go down with him because he's working on this freelance story that he's been pitching around, and it was a real great experience for me. I feel like I always enjoy having a camera in my hand, and it was actually it was pleasant to get out of town for a day, get a little road trip, change of scenery.
I thought he went to Pyeongchang, so.
No, I thought he went to Egypt, but I guess Cairo somewhere else. No, I don't think any of us are going to Pyeongchang just yet. Maybe next year. We'll watch the aftermath of the Paralympics right here. So welcome, man. James Boyd, Will Gerard, Jason Liggett. Man, he's always here.
We got the full squad in the studio.
We
reunited at last.
Alex Aguilera. I'm sorry. Will's back in his spot.
Alex may have to come back another time.
He'll be back. Not the last time you guys have heard from him. But we have a good show today. We've got a lot of good people coming on today. Amanda McRoy, we'll hear some good stuff about her, some not so good stuff about her.
How she handles that not so good stuff.
Great question. Then we'll hear from Jeremy Lade. We're going on the enemy territory here. We're going to Whitewater, Wisconsin.
It felt right after how much we talked
I
about
was
them on the
gonna
show.
say, is it enemy territory?
I don't think it is, really.
I thought it was just like, at this
I
point,
think
it's
there
like...
isn't too much hostility there. I get the sense it's a friendly rivalry.
I think
the
enemy territory exists because Illinois cannot beat Whitewater.
Maybe. Can you call it a rivalry if they never beat them? Kind of old question.
Ryan's holding nothing back tonight.
Right.
Like, why is there a rivalry between the Cardinals and the Cubs?
I digress.
Jason, do you know?
I mean, who's been to the NLCS the past 3 years? Just saying.
Whatever. So, anyway.
Ryan's wearing a real ugly Cardinals shirt for you listeners out there,
I
just
concur.
so you know.
But it's good for UPTV. Our favorite people out there. So, Tokyo Marathon happened last Saturday. Tetsy McFadden did not come in first. Came in second.
Because that's just so bad.
I know, right? Fourth, our good friend Amanda McCrory. She was not too satisfied with her performance, but as we'll find out here shortly, that could be attributed to many different factors. So, one, she took a break after the New York Marathon in November, I believe. And so took a break from the intense workout regimen she normally does.
And it's a circuit she's been doing in terms of a year-round racing. I want to say she said 3 to 4 years. I'm not sure of the exact time frame there, but it's for her. It's really been a daily grind.
Right. So she was just getting a break, and then she had to jump back into the Tokyo Marathon, a rather flat course. And so what that means is it was changed last year. What a flat course means for wheelchair racers is you don't have the hills to go up and then just coast down. So, like, to put that in perspective, two semesters ago, man, time flies anymore.
You're getting old.
I know, I need some gray hair. So 2 semesters ago, when Kane and I would always come here together, when he would be in his pushchair, when we were going down a sidewalk, he would just fly because of gravity. And I'd be way behind him, struggling in my $40,000 chair and 350-pound chair.
It doesn't roll as fast?
It does not roll as fast.
Little known fact out there, Ryan's actually the heaviest one here in the studio.
Yeah. Sponsorship. that we need. Nobody pays me. Or do they? No, so Amanda McCrory was not too satisfied with her performance. Tatiana didn't get to hear from her, but she's always satisfied, I feel, with her performance. However, in the overall world rankings, she is really far behind.
Yeah, kind of unfamiliar territory, considering who she is, but
Right.
still any given marathon could be hers.
Right, so they're just getting back into the marathon season. But of course, last year at the start of the season, Tatiana was battling the blood clots and stuff like that. But now she's back, just at the podium, of course, but not with the gold medal that she's used to getting, of course. Just the beginning. This really means nothing. It's just one race.
We may want to save this for the very end of our show here, but we actually saw her doing some pretty cool stuff this morning as well. For anyone who follows us on social media, I think you know what we're talking about already.
She has some pretty important people in the sports branding world.
Some big wigs from Nike were here.
Came to visit.
They weren't too interested in making small talk.
They were not very friendly.
Tried.
Shout out to our good friends at Nike.
I was absolutely amazed by all the equipment they had set up. It was great. But I felt like a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah, I know.
That is a fact.
The esteemed photog.
Ryan made a joke where he mentioned to them, he's like, I mean, I'm wearing Nike shoes. They didn't even like grin or anything. They were just,
we can get to this later, I'm sure. Don't want to spoil the surprise early on. But before we lead into the Amanda interview here, sat down with her earlier today, had an insightful interview, but she said, quote, on Instagram, not my quote here, she said she felt like a turd in the Tokyo Marathon. Gross. You gotta fix that, okay?
We said this already on our show, but if you're not following her on social media, you need to do it because she's got the best content.
She really does.
Content.
She really does. She's got personality. Like in person, like it translates very well.
Yes, Amanda is always a good person. Always a joy to talk with. So to end on the turd, we'll jump to the interview. So tell me, we were talking about Tokyo. Reflecting back, what comes to mind?
Reflecting back on Tokyo is a lot of pain. So much pain. I came into it, I was pretty excited coming into it as the defending champion, but I was also aware that I took a lot of time off over the winter, and that we're still in our base training mode right now. And so the first half of the race felt really good, and around 25K, just over the half marathon mark, it started really hurting. But that's, talking to Adam, I was expecting that going into it. And our season is so long now, starting in Tokyo in February, finishing in New York in November, that we don't really have a real off season anymore. And so in order to take advantage of what we do have, you have to sacrifice top performance at a couple of races. And so a not great Tokyo is hopefully going to lead into a very strong Boston and a very strong London.
So what did that break period kind of look like for you? I mean, how do you kind of, manage to, get a little downtime when there's just the season going on for basically like a year straight, like you just kind of alluded to there?
Our season is so ridiculously long because it's set up in quads. And so we've got World Championships, Paralympics, World Championships, and then an off year. And so this is really our first off year in 3 years. And so even after Rio in 2016, I didn't have a real break. I kind of took a couple weeks and then jumped right back into marathon training. Took a little bit of time off over the winter again and jumped right back into marathon training. And so talking to Adam after New York, I was feeling pretty wiped out and just felt like it was time to have a good long chunk of time out of my chair. So I took a solid 2 months off. And I still worked out in the gym. I did some hand cycling, but I wasn't in my racing chair at all. And so I feel fresh and I feel strong, but I don't have that speed and I don't have that endurance right now.
Is it exciting for you to be back in your racing chair after 2 months? Like, were you kind of, itching to get back at it?
I was definitely, I'm so used to being in my racing chair all the time that I was beyond ready to get back into it. And that's what I was really hoping for. The point of the break was to get me excited about racing again. And by the time November rolled around and I'd finished New York, I didn't even want to look at my racing chair. I just wanted to like walk away, take a break. But all that time off got me really excited to get back into it again and get back to training.
So just kind of getting back to that a little bit, can you kind of tell me about what you did for that period of time to kind of take your mind off racing? I mean, are there any activities you were involved in or researching? Can you tell me?
I am. I'm always busy. And so even when I'm not training, I'm a graduate student and I have an assistantship through the School of Information Science where I work their tech support help desk during the day and TA classes as tech support in the evening. And so even without training, I'm still working 20, 25 hours a week, plus classes on top of that. And even though I wasn't in my racing chair, I was still working out in the gym. So it's still a pretty full schedule. I also decided I was going to learn Spanish, which I did a really good job of for like December, January. And I'm at a plateau.
So where are you at in your knowledge of Spanish then? I mean, can you carry a conversation with someone?
Interview in Spanish?
Yeah, so I took 5 years of Spanish when I was in high school. And then I haven't used it. I mean, I graduated high school in 2004, so I haven't really used it at all for the past 15 years. And I thought it was going to come back to me really easy. And I learned through the university, we have free access to Rosetta Stone. And so I did the first few lessons of it, and I was like, yeah, I got this. I got my colors. I can count 1 through 10. And now I'm into like the 3rd or 4th unit, and we're like talking about the, you know, present perfect tense, and I'm in over my head.
That's all.
But I can ask like where the library is. I can tell you what color my pants are.
There you go. So getting back to Tokyo and the marathons, I know they changed up the course a little bit for this year. How did that affect maybe your racing?
So they actually changed the course for Tokyo last year. 2017 was a brand new course. The 2016 course was pretty tough. It ended with 5 or 6 overpasses. And so it was just like short climb coast, climb coast, climb coast for the last few miles of the race. And it was killer. They changed the course 2017 to make it a little bit flatter and to open up the finish area a little bit. So I knew what the course was like coming into it, but didn't seem to help too much. I know that Manuela, who won the race in Tokyo, she didn't really take much of a break. She took a couple weeks off around Christmas and then spent the winter. She's from Switzerland, where it's as cold as it is here. So she spent her winter training in South Africa. So she came into it fresh and ready to go. And you could definitely tell. She was making Tatiana and I both hurt from the start of the race.
Really?
He needs to get his keys out of here real fast.
I guess.
Joey!
You're fine.
You guys are welcome to.
I didn't see them, actually. All I moved with I slid your computer over and moved your jackets. I didn't touch anything else.
That's no thing, yeah. Well, you guys are welcome to Tootsie Rolls, by the way.
Thank you. And Mike and X?
And yeah, Mike. So what do you do?
Yeah. Alright, so with... Oh, you're good, you're good. So with Manuela getting better, how does that affect maybe your motivation and determination to train and going forward?
I think that getting your butt kicked always increases your motivation to train, but I also think the first race of the season is kind of just a little bit of everybody testing the water. So I hadn't seen anyone since November, and even here, we're all training on the rollers, and so I'm doing the same workouts as Susanna and Tatiana and the rest of the marathoners here. We don't actually have anything to measure our performance against each other. It's all individual. And so getting out on the road just to see where I stacked up, I think was good. And it's nice to come into it knowing that there's some work to do and knowing what I need to work on. I sometimes think it's harder to come into it being up at the top and trying to hold on throughout the season. And so I know that I've got some time. I know that I need to work on endurance. And talking to Adam, that's the next step of our plan. We're working on speed, and then we're going to try to build up that endurance afterwards. And so I think when I get out onto the road, pre-Boston, pre-London, I'll be in a good position for that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing you kind of just told us is how you spend a lot of time, you know, with informational sciences, and off camera you even talked about like this internship they have coming up. Can you kind of tell me about that field and what interests you about it?
Yes. So I'm finishing up my master's degree in information science here at the U of I, focusing on museums and archives. I ended up in information science because I really love to organize things, like a weird amount. Like if I have nothing to do on a weekend, I'll clean my closet out and reorganize it. And so I've been trying to, being a professional athlete is a career that doesn't last forever. And I think that it's important to do some planning for next steps. And so for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been playing with what I want to do when I retire from marathoning. And I've been very fortunate to just recently be offered an internship position at the USOC in Colorado Springs, working in their archives, which is extra cool because they're in the process of building an Olympic and Paralympic museum. And over the summer, the archives are going to help acquire some artifacts and get things set up to be moved over to the museum. But I was trying to think of a way to really put together my passion for organizing and also my passion for sports, to really combine my like professional and athletic interests together. And working at the USOC is probably best case scenario. This is pretty much a dream job.
So tell me, when you think about life after marathoning, what does that look like?
I'm still trying to figure out what life after marathoning looks like. I'm committed through Tokyo 2020, and so I'm going to do my best to train for the next 2 years and make that team. And then hopefully this internship at the USOC will open up some doors. I've got some good connections here at the U of I in the information sciences program and at a few of the local libraries, so we'll see where it goes. But if I could do something that, like working at the archives, that keeps my love of sports and my love of information together, that would be perfect.
Off camera, you mentioned that you've been in Champaign for a while now. I mean, are you excited about this like upcoming change of scenery then?
I am super excited to go to Colorado Springs, and I'm also super nervous. I've been here for a really long time. I'm very comfortable here. I own a house here. I've spent almost half of my life in Champaign. I moved here when I was 18, so I've been here for 14 years now. But I don't know, I think it's going to be a great next step and a good new adventure, and I'm excited about that.
Good for you. Now for marathoning and the next marathon you have, what will you need to do to improve your speed and endurance? What are those steps to improve it?
So working on endurance is tough on the rollers because you're limited by the rollers, you're limited by being indoors. So I really think that as soon as we get out on the road and start putting together some of those long pushes, some of the 15, 20 milers, I think that it's all going to come together naturally. It has in the past. It's always tough coming off the rollers, and there's just things that are different about pushing on the rollers versus pushing on the road, like holding your head up. By 15 miles, my neck was so sore because I'm used to just pushing like head down, hammering it on the rollers and not having to look in front of me to see where I'm going, that I could hardly hold it up. So I think that some of those things will start to come back together naturally. And then also being able to push with Tatiana, to work with some of the guys out on the road, I think that those will be good things as well.
So is that training regimen just kind of the nature of when you are in Champaign-Urbana? It's winter. You can't push around what's close. I mean, with spring coming, is that kind of when you see like a lot of progress being made, just being out on the road?
There's absolutely a benefit to being able to push outside on the road, but I also think there's some benefits to the rollers as well. You don't have to deal with other factors. There's no wind. There's no inclines, declines. It's just pushing, and so it's a really good opportunity to work on your stroke, focusing on technique, getting some video footage in, and I also think it's great for the off season. It kind of forces us to take a little bit of a break, which if you're training in warm weather year round, you don't have that need. And so it means that we're coming back into it, we're switching up our training a little bit, we're coming into it a little bit fresher versus just training long distance outside on the road every day year round.
Do the rollers provide like a similar resistance to when you're in your racing chair, or is it entirely different? Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, we have a really cool setup with the rollers here. They're connected to Wahoo cycle trainers, which use like a Bluetooth connection to an iPad to increase resistance. And so we can up the resistance all the way up to 100%, where you can barely even get the roller to move. But it still feels different. And so it's supposed to simulate hill climbing or simulate pushing into a headwind. but it's still not quite the same. So I think that it's a good tool to use, and definitely for power, working on building power, building strength. It's fantastic. But if you do all of your training on the rollers and then you go outside and climb a hill, it's definitely going to feel different.
Okay, I think this camera's about to go nighty-night, so I'll
Oh
go with one more question. I know, just kind of reading your Instagram post about Tokyo
Yes.
and hearing you today, one question I have is, how do you define and measure your own success outside of building endurance, speed, and power?
It's a really good question.
He
Thank
saves
you.
the
Yeah.
biggest, the most weighty question. for
I
us.
know.
It's heavily weighted.
Thanks, Ryan.
Had to ease into it.
That's a tough question, and I think it's something elite athletes have to confront whether or not they are improving, being successful all the time. I don't know if I'm wording this right. But I've been talking a lot about this in one of my classes lately. So every year we sit down with Adam at the beginning of the season and we put together a goal sheet and we write down what we want to do and how we want to perform. And they're big goals. They're always big goals. I mean, on my goal sheet is to win majors, it's to come home with gold medals, it's to set world records. I mean, they're big goals. And we don't always reach them. And most of the time, we don't reach all of them. And so essentially, I have developed a career out of failing. I reach towards these really big goals, and I don't always hit them. But I do find that there's always something that I can pull out of my performance that's growth, no matter what. And so Tokyo set the bar for the season. There were a lot of things that I did really good. Knowing that I didn't have the endurance to be ready for a marathon, I think that I ran a really great first 15 miles. I felt really strong. I worked a lot on my sprinting speed and my ability to close on the other athletes when they attacked or accelerated. And I'm going to take that and, you know, I always want to be faster, I always want to be stronger, but looking at where I was and the things that I did well in Tokyo, I want to take them and build off of them and hopefully do those things better in Boston and then even better in London.
Sweet. Anything else you have, Will?
No, I think that was a good way to end the interview. Right?
Yeah, that was a doozy.
Yeah,
I think
that's
you answered it appropriately.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
All right, that was a fun interview we did with Amanda this morning. Always a great person, great interview, and a great time.
It was so fun, even though we did it in like a broom closet, you know?
Yeah, we were in Kelsey LaFavora's office, and she splits an office with Joey Peters. Joey, a side note, you heard in the interview, actually came in the office. He's a GA for the graduate assistant for the wheelchair track team.
You think about what GA stands for? Is it
No,
Georgia?
no, I was like, wait, is he part of GEO? I don't know.
But he's definitely
He
someone you
is.
see around Dres all the time.
He is. So, yeah, Joey Peters was on the men's gymnastics team.
Yeah, I covered him like way back when.
You know,
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in my class.
that's
So I feel like
hilarious.
he's been at the university for a while. He's,
I'm sure he has. He probably feels the same way.
yeah. I mean, no disrespect, but I was
Yeah.
like, wow, like when I read here about
Same for
something new he's
Amanda. I
doing.
mean, she's telling us that she's been here for, 13, 14 years now?
Yeah, like they
Oh,
just
gosh.
they love the university.
That's a
They
lot.
never leave. But me, I
Yeah.
don't know if I can say the same about the May. I don't know.
So
These two have senioritis already.
No, I just need to fix one class. So Joey is installing some equipment in the Paralympic Training Center downstairs in the basement of Dres. I'm not too familiar with all the equipment he's installing, but I do know he's adding some cameras and some equipment that will allow the racers, as they're on the rollers, kind of like the treadmills of wheelchair racing, to analyze their bodies and their motion and technique and all of that. So we're going to take a quick break and come back with a conversation Will Gerard, producer man Will Gerard, did with Jeremy Lade, a.k.a. Opie. So Opie is the head coach of the men's wheelchair track team at Whitewater, Wisconsin. So stay tuned for that. Great conversation, very enlightening. We learn a lot.
Before
about
then,
this
we're
guy.
going to have to listen to Ryan's favorite band, the Underwear Wolves. Felicia.
So, Jeremy, how's it going today?
Great. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah, we're doing just fine. You know, it's been a fun week for us. It's always the highlight of my week, coming to the studio and being here with the guys. So my first question for you here is, in a recent interview I had with Matt Butchie, he kind of took me through how he was introduced to the sport of wheelchair basketball, and he kind of explained to me how shortly after a childhood accident, he saw wheelchair basketball, and once he saw the contact of the players running into each other and knocking one another out of their chairs, that was really enticing for him. From your perspective, can you kind of tell me like how you were first introduced to the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've always been a sports guy. My family was always into athletics, and well before I was ever in a car accident. I was in a car accident when I was 8 years old, and didn't necessarily know that adaptive athletics was a possibility for me. And after I got home, I kept playing sports, trying to keep up with my friends, and then I found out about adaptive athletics through a sports camp. And through that sports camp, I fell in love with wheelchair basketball. And I don't think it was the fact that using wheelchairs was the part that I fell in love with. It's the fact that I got to keep competing and compete at a very high level at it.
Yeah, one question I have for you is, can you kind of tell me the relationship you have with Illinois men's basketball head coach Matt Butchie? I'm sure you guys interact quite a bit, you know, in terms of, you know, going back to your playing days and even, you know, now as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Wheelchair basketball is a bit of a small world, so most of the stories kind of tie together. And Matt Bush and I definitely tie together. We competed against each other on the court as collegiate students, and we've known each other for a lot of years. And working our way up in the coaching rank as young coaches, and gradually becoming some veteran coaches on division. So definitely value Matt's friendship and any expertise he can bounce off me.
One name that's, you know, obviously prominent on this campus is Mike Frogley, who's someone who's the National Academy Director and head coach of Team Canada, you know, a major figure in the wheelchair basketball community. Can you kind of tell me what it was like playing for him and how he kind of shaped you as an individual? I mean, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was actually, you know, he's the guy that was running the camp when I first found out about adaptive athletics. So he definitely played a big role in opening my eyes to the possibility of competing in wheelchair basketball. And not just competing in wheelchair basketball, but living life independently and not needing any assistance, even though I had a disability. And everyone in the wheelchair basketball world knows me as Opie. And Mike Frogley is actually the guy who gave me that nickname the first time that I went to wheelchair basketball camp. And still consider him a friend and a mentor, and certainly a guy that's instrumental in putting wheelchair basketball on the map and some of the strategies that are being implemented today.
All right, well, you beat me to the very next question I had for you there, talking about how you got that nickname. So, I mean, you talk about wheelchair basketball being such a tight-knit community. I mean, who are some other people that have really influenced you?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate. You know, I grew up going to summer camps at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and we've had some impressive athletes and coaches that have come in through the ranks, and it started with Mike Frogley, Steve Wilson, and then I played for Tracy Chenoweth, who was my coach here, and also ran some camps, so one of the really big mentors in my life. And then also some of the great players that I've had a chance to play with and train with, Melvin Jewett, Eric Barber, Joey Johnson, some absolutely big names in wheelchair basketball that I'm very fortunate to say I've played some wheelchair basketball and trained in wheelchair basketball with some of those people.
Yeah, one thing we talk about a lot on our program is kind of the storied history that there is at Illinois in terms of, you know, going back to the Whiz Kids and being one of the first, you know, wheelchair basketball teams in the country. Can you kind of tell me the history of the Whitewater program? I know it was founded in 1973, and kind of, you know, how it's developed throughout the years.
Yeah, we actually started on campus from having some vets that were coming back from the war, and we had some vets enrolled at UW Whitewater, and we have a program on campus, department, called Center for Students with Disabilities, and that program has been on campus and kind of leading the way for campuses in terms of providing accessibility and educational options for anybody with a disability. So that naturally attracted individuals with disabilities to our campus. And then we wanted to provide more than just educational assistance. We wanted to make sure they had a recreational or athletic outlet option as well. And that's how wheelchair basketball started at UW Whitewater.
Yeah, along those lines, how would you describe the rivalry that you have with Illinois?
Well, I think it's like any other rivalry. It obviously stems from both teams being very competitive, and I don't think you ever hear about a rivalry in which one team is winning more than the other. I think it's a rivalry in which you got some very competitive teams that have been doing it well for a long time, and that's given a lot of respect to U of I and all the battles that we've had. And part of it is Matt and myself kind of carrying on that rivalry as well, because he was a player for U of I and I was playing for Whitewater, and now with both of us coaching these programs, I think that keeps that rivalry going. And I would describe it as a really healthy rivalry. I think that's a good thing, and both programs are pushing the other program to be the best that they can possibly be.
For our listeners out there that have never seen your team play, how would you describe your style of play? I mean, from watching you guys play, it seems like, correct me if I pronounce his name wrong, but sophomore point guard Dylan Fishbach was the guy who was really orchestrating your offense. He was someone with great handle, someone who could shoot from anywhere on the floor. I mean, could you kind of tell me how your team has done this season and what are your real strengths?
Yeah, I think our style of play changes based on our personnel each year. And, yeah, we got a point guard right now, Dylan Fishbach, that has the ability to push the pace. So we're trying to play a little bit up-tempo, trying to catch the defense on their heels and stay in attack mode basically for 40 minutes of a ball game. And, when your primary ball handler has the capability to drive and to shoot and obviously handle and pass the ball really well, that kind of plays itself well into our strength. So we definitely try to play a little bit more of an up-tempo style basketball game this season.
Off the floor, I know one thing you kind of told me about prior to this interview, and I did a little research about it, is how you guys at Whitewater have this program called Cornerstones for Success. And for our listeners out there who've never heard about it, it's a program that dispels myths about people who have a disability and shows students at any age that they can be successful in and out of the classroom and overcome any type of obstacle. At least that's how it was described on your guys' webpage. Could you kind of tell me a little more about that program? I understand that you guys, I think, are going to be going to a middle school tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, we actually travel all over the state, and actually, we travel basically as far as people are willing to foot the bill in terms of covering travel. But we go out to area schools and we bring a few athletes. They talk about their disability and some of the challenges that they've had to overcome, and talk about, despite the fact that they've had those challenges, that they're still successful in life, academically and athletically. And then we bring some wheelchairs and we give the kids a chance to try and play wheelchair basketball against a few of our athletes, while we get an opportunity to show them what athletes that are training 5 days a week can do in a wheelchair. So it's really a good opportunity for us to not only advertise for the sport, also operate as a fundraiser, but big picture things, what we're trying to do is break down the stereotypes that are associated with individuals that have disabilities.
Yeah, you obviously just alluded to it a little bit here, but could you kind of explain to me why it's important for able-bodied individuals to kind of have this interaction with people with disabilities and kind of get an understanding of, what life is like there from their perspective in terms of how they're, able to function on a daily basis just as anyone else would in this community, or anywhere, I guess?
Yeah, that's a big part of our presentation. Obviously, it's based around us playing basketball, but we also talk about, all of our athletes leading everyday life just like everybody else does. Drive cars, live in houses, live in the dorms. We live just like everybody else does, and that's one of the big things for our presentation as well. And really what we're trying to do is, get individuals to understand, able-bodied individuals, or even people that don't know about wheelchair basketball that might have a disability, that the sport that we're playing, the level that we're playing at, it's not based on rehabilitation. We're not talking about individuals that were recently injured. We're talking about athletes that are training 5 days a week in a competitive atmosphere to get all the privileges and all the knowledges that any other athlete playing at the college level gets to gain, such as teamwork, camaraderie, building a brotherhood, and really learning all of the tools that it takes to be successful at the next step of life.
Along those lines, how have you seen the sport of wheelchair basketball evolve since you started playing in terms of, technological advancements or even, it being more, I guess, like something that's more, I guess you probably get, I would assume you guys get a little more coverage than you did back when you first started playing. I mean, you've kind of talked about, the interaction that you have all around the state.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, on the technological standpoint, the equipment that is being used is cutting edge, and there is wheelchair companies that are pushing the envelope in terms of getting the most out of these wheelchairs, which allow us to get the most out of our athletes. So the wheelchairs continue to change and continue to improve, which increases the speed and the maneuverability and the agility of our athletes on the floor. And then in terms of the game itself, I think young coaches coming up like Matt is coming up with new ideas and trying new things to really try to take the game to the next level and not just settling on what some of the coaches or what some of the athletes have done in the past. We're trying to really update the game and continue to find new strategy on offense and defense to really push the edge and push the envelope and try to catch the other coaches on their heel to show them something that they haven't seen before.
On our show, we've talked about Ryan Nieswinder, his abilities. We've talked about, Stephanie Wheeler and kind of her contributions to Team USA. Can you kind of explain to our listeners out there how you've been involved with Team USA throughout the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been on the U.S. Paralympic team since 2001 and actually just recently retired. So in terms of Paralympics, I went in 2004 and 2008 and 2012, which would have been Athens and Beijing and London, and then all the World Championships in between there. And it was a great experience. It's obviously really cool to compete at the highest level of your sport, but it gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about myself, to build a lot of relationships, and put me in a position to coach and put me in a position to succeed at life, finding out what it takes to be successful at that level.
Is there anything that compares to, appearing in the Paralympics?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I'll tell you, I will always remember the first USA jersey I ever got and the goosebumps I got the first time I put it on. And that jersey is hanging in my basement right now, and it'll always be a very prized possession. And the thing about it is people look at it as representing your country. But to me, it's more than that. It's representing my parents who drove me all over the place for wheelchair basketball practices when I was a kid, and my brother who had to hang out in a gym all day long for wheelchair basketball tournaments, and every one of my teachers on campus that, whether I had to miss for training camps or whatever it may be, you're representing so much more. The country doesn't really give justice to all those people that are really close to you that play a role in you being successful on the court.
I know one thing that we see often in able-bodied basketball is that there's kind of a seamless transition for point guards to being like coach, because they're the ones that are sort of running the offense. I mean, how was that transition for you? I mean, did that really prepare you for what you're doing now from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, I guess, as a point guard, I would guess I was always a leader on most of my teams. A seamless transition might be overstating it. I think there's a challenge associated with learning how to teach the game. Just because you know the game or you know the strategies behind the game, to really be an effective coach, you got to learn how to teach, how to train, how to teach others to play the game. So, seamless might make it seem a little bit easier than it is, but I think playing the role of a leader on the floor and really being a student of the game when I was playing the game made the transition a little bit easier for me, just because I've had the experience on the court.
What do you enjoy about coaching college athletes?
My favorite part about coaching college athletes is seeing them be successful at the next level. During the season, it's cool to see them grow and pick up fundamental skills that are going to translate to us being a better basketball team and them being a better basketball player. But my favorite thing is to see them graduate and move on and get a true understanding of why we run the program the way we do. Punctuality is important, and meeting expectations and working with individuals, whether you like them or don't necessarily get along with them, whatever it may be. There's a lot of skills that are being taught in a 5-year wheelchair basketball career at a collegiate level, and to see them implement it in the next step of their life is one of the coolest things that you can see.
How can you tell our viewers out there how your team has done this season and kind of take us through the goals that you guys have left to accomplish? I mean, I know that you guys did exceptionally well when you were here in Champaign playing at the Arc. I know you guys won that tournament. You definitely put on display in the championship game. I mean, what do you guys have left here before nationals?
Well, we actually got some local men's teams that we play against to try and stay sharp and continue to work on some things. So we'll play some of those. We're done with collegiate games as of now, so we're just getting ready for nationals with some exhibition games. And we'll be going into nationals as the 3 seed. We lost a few games early in the season and have been building off of that. We've had a couple of injuries, and it's always tricky to bounce back from injuries. Not only putting a new guy in, but now when our guys are coming back from injury, trying to get all those guys on the same page again, because he just spent all that time trying to figure out new guys. So we got some challenges ahead of us. You know, certainly the teams above us are obviously 1 and 2 for a reason, but really all the way down the list, there's some fantastic teams, and I think every game at the Nationals is going to be a close game.
Just to pivot a little bit in a different direction here, can you kind of describe to our listeners out there, the current landscape of wheelchair basketball, even with, the National Wheelchair Basketball Association, what's available to players after the college level?
Yeah, absolutely. The National Wheelchair Basketball Association, the NWBA, has got divisions basically for whatever level of play that you want to play at once you graduate collegiately. So there's obviously juniors, and there's multiple levels of juniors, which is before you play at the college division. And then once you graduate, there's 3 men's divisions, which goes based off the level of competition that you're looking for, level 1 being the highest, and level 3 being a little bit more directed towards recreational level. And then there's also women's adult league as well, and they provide some options in terms of, competing at whatever level that is your desire, basically.
One thing I noticed from doing a little research about you is that you are passionate about motorcycling. I think that's one thing I saw. Could you kind of tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of grew up a car guy, not just motorcycling, basically hot rods, anything that goes fast. I actually have a couple of motorcycles right now. I have a Can-Am Spider, basically has 2 wheels in the front and 1 wheel in the back, and my wheelchair mounts on the side of it. And then I have a custom-built chopper as well, and it's got 1 wheel in the front and 2 wheels in the back, and my wheelchair mounts on that as well. And I jockey shift my chopper, and my Can-Am Spider is semi-automatic, so you still got to shift it. But yeah, I've always been passionate about anything that goes fast or makes a lot of noise, and my motorcycles do both of those.
So are you just a huge thrill seeker then?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, I've always been, 4-wheelers, and growing up it was mini bikes and kind of anything that goes quick. I enjoy. So when I'm not coaching or playing wheelchair basketball, I'm usually running around on some kind of toy.
Can you tell me any other activities or passions you have off the floor?
Well, I tell you, one of my favorite things to do is hang out with my wife. She is a superstar, and we've been together since high school sweethearts, and we absolutely share the same passions. And she's been nothing but supportive of me in all my years of playing wheelchair basketball. So when I get a chance and I'm not on the court, we try to hang out whenever possible. We have a couple of dogs that we enjoy hanging out with, and really just trying to enjoy life as much as we can.
Well, that's incredible. I know we're all just kind of looking for a partner like that out there. My last question for you then is, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have any last thoughts, anything you'd like to share with our listeners out there, any shout-outs you want to give?
No, I guess I would like to end by saying I think this is a really cool interview, and anybody at U of I should be very proud of that wheelchair athletics program they have going on there, and continually building, and they're definitely continually pushing the envelope, and radio shows like this help to do that. So I'm excited to help out in any way that I can. I know that there's been a book put out about U of I and their run to a championship.
We just spoke to that author last week, well, or 2 weeks ago, yeah. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's all really, really great stuff. I mean, like I said, all the students on campus at U of I should be very proud of all the wonderful things that their wheelchair athletics program is doing. And we have fun playing against your team every single time. So you guys have a lot to be proud of, and we certainly appreciate the relationship between your campus and our campus.
All right, well, it was definitely a pleasure talking to you. I hope we get the chance to speak again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You let me know anytime. I'll come and do an interview.
All right, sounds good. Best of luck to you the rest of the season.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too. And we'll conclude with that. We'll be back here with Rollin Illini on WPGU 107.1 after a short commercial break.
Welcome back, Rollin Illini here, WPGU 107.1, UPTV, James Boyd, Wiltshire, Jason, look at him, Ryan Wilson. Fun interview with Jeremy Wade, very insightful. Learned a lot about Jeremy there. Never knew he rode a chopper, as I told Will during the break. Maybe I should ride a motorcycle. I think I will.
Something else maybe to
Yeah, something else we'll try
plan
here
for
on
this
Rolling Line.
semester?
Get a GoPro, stick it on my head.
As long as there's a GoPro, then I'm totally down for it.
Yes.
We have to document it so everyone knows that
Yes,
it happened.
have to document me riding at 1 mile an hour on a motorcycle.
Oh, no, we're going to go faster than that.
Okay, too. Anyways, as we alluded to earlier in the show, we saw Tatiana McFadden today working with Nike. So Nike came down from Chicago, some Nike filmmakers, and they're doing a little promotion about Paralympic sports and about equality. They had a lot of equipment. Unfortunately, they did not want us in the shoot.
A real surprise.
I was wearing their shoes. I needed your hat, James. I don't know what else I need. I think I just need like 12 gold medals, but whatever.
Over under 12.
Yeah. But anyways, to branch that out and take it to a broader perspective, a lot of these big companies, organizations, spend tons of money focusing on Olympic athletes. So Michael Phelps, Simone Biles, Ali Raisman, all of these top names. But the Paralympics, I think, don't receive the attention that they want or deserve, really.
I've yet to see a commercial for the Paralympics coming up soon, for what it's worth. I'm very excited about it, though.
Right.
We're all excited about it.
Yeah, we talked about it before the show. Like, you
Yikes.
could probably put money on the amount of people that don't know that
Right.
Pyeongchang and people are still competing.
But there is
Tatiana's definitely
yeah.
one that you will see on TV quite a bit, though, with her
Yeah.
sponsorship with Nike.
And of course, there is a way that some of these companies promote the Paralympic movement and the Paralympic Games, and that is by airing commercials during the Olympics. And so they do that, as James informed me, they do that to not only bring awareness to their own brand, but also tell some news stories of these Paralympic athletes going to Pyeongchang 2018, starting next week on NBC. Not here, though.
Ryan giving the info.
Yes, NBC, March 9th. Next Friday, I'll be right in here.
We should throw like
Yeah.
a viewing party.
We should. Borderline viewing party.
I can get with that.
Have these new stickers with
I'm
us.
excited for the opening games. Those are always memorable.
Yeah, but like in the stuff that I looked up today and just researching about sponsorships and Paralympic sports, one thing that was like common throughout everything that I read was that some people they overlook that Paralympics isn't covered because of the transcendent athletes. So, for example, they see Tatiana like, oh, they get covered. Well, yeah, it's because she's won at an extremely high rate. You know, the average athlete, average Olympian isn't going to win as much as her. So she's an exception to the rule in a sense. It's
She's
like
only like the, Michael Jordan or LeBron.
exactly. You see what I'm
of her
saying? So
sport.
like their greatness kind of transcends whatever little box or like niche that they usually will kind of stick in. So again, one of the things is for one of the I guess better ways to be more included beyond just the best of the best when it comes to Paralympic athletes will be for the IPC and the IOC to kind of work together more, because a lot of people don't know they're separate, but two, like they're kind of together. So it's like, are they able to mesh more? Will they be able to mesh more in the future to kind of get the word out there about the Paralympics? Remains to be seen. But obviously, if the IOC pushes the IPC more, you'll see more people just being more informed about it. Because it's not like some people genuinely probably do find it like Paralympics boring. Not me, of course. I love it. But there's a lot of people, even in my own personal life, that when I bring up Tatiana McFadden, Amanda McGrory, when I bring up some of the better or the greatest Paralympic athletes that we even covered on this show, they're like, who is that? Like, what they do? And then I tell them, like, oh, like you interviewed this, like she won how many gold, but she did this and he did what, and that's they just don't know.
I mean, it's certainly worth noting too, even when you think about like when people see like the sport of wheelchair basketball for the first time
Exactly.
over at the Arc. Like that's a real eye-opening experience for them because they're like, wow, there's like so much movement happening. I mean, there's a resemblance to able-bodied basketball here.
Yeah, I think some people kind of, based off what they see in the media or what they don't see in the media, they form these opinions or these attitudes towards disabilities and what a certain sport might look like, and then you see it and you're like, oh, like this is not what I expected. So I think showing like little brief moments of that throughout the Olympics would definitely help that cause.
Yeah, I know the NBC has increased their coverage this year to previous years. And I know the Boston Globe published a piece recently, maybe even yesterday, kind of talking about why is the Paralympics not as popular in the U.S. I wish I had the answer. But there are a lot of reasons, James, you had talked about them. People just don't know about the Paralympic movement. They don't know about the Paralympic Games. They know about the Olympics, but they don't know what happens after, like 2 weeks after the Olympic Games.
Hashtag Paralympics Day here on Rollin Illini.
Every day.
And that was started by Amanda McGrory. She said Paralympics Day when we had her and another guest in the studio. But anyways, I think some people watch any Paralympic sport and they see wheelchair, they see the prosthetic leg, they see somebody's visually impaired, they see the disability, and I say disability for a reason. They see what they can't do instead of weights. Tatiana McFadden can't walk, but wow, she's won how many medals? Like 19 medals? Quite impressive. And then you go to her workout routine and you see that she's benching a bunch of weight and benching herself with weights chained around her waist. She did that today, actually.
I mean, I believe reading that when she was like really young, she could like walk on her hands.
Yeah. She could walk on her hands. So the sports are really
Incredible.
Yeah.
Just casually throw that out there. Like, yeah, she could, she couldn't walk like us, but she could walk on her hands.
Yeah.
Because she's that strong. I'm like, what?
So, of course, one benefit, I think, for corporates or big companies to partner with Paralympic athletes, like Nike has done, Adidas, Pepsi, Coke, BP, Alliance, all these different companies, is that they're branching out and they're showing that, yes, they endorse these Olympic athletes, but they also endorse these Paralympic athletes who are not as recognized, but if you follow them along, you'll see something incredible. I think we see that just about every day here on the U of I campus. I sure saw it in Winter Park, Colorado over winter break, and I know we will all see it in Pyeongchang 2018 from Illinois in Champaign here.
I mean, let me tell you right now,
Think about where
I'm
you
going
at.
to spend more time watching the Paralympics than I actually spent like watching the Olympics.
Nice. That's awesome.
I mean, I think we had this conversation off air a little bit. I don't know what the viewership was in this room, but like I'm looking forward just to see how how it's done. Especially I mean with each host country, there's always a certain different customs and rituals they do with each Olympics. So it'll be cool to see all the Paralympians on display.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I was just reflecting when Ryan asked me to join the show over the summer, and since then, haven't really looked back. So let's just keep the train moving and keep rolling.
Big things
Hashtag rolling.
Yes.
And learning more about different sports and different perspectives. So that, to me, is what makes all this fun.
Stay tuned.
So with that, 7 o'clock on the money, we have some Paralympic games to watch next week. So tune in next Friday for some Paralympic coverage, and we'll be talking about wheelchair basketball, so many things. Not
Live
enough
from
time.
Pyeongchang.
Live in Pyeongchang from Illinois. Makes sense. So, have a nice weekend. Stay safe. For James Boyd, Wiltshire Rudd, Jason Liggett, I'm Ryan Wilson. Thanks for listening on Rollin Illini.